I graduated from sports therapy in Portobello in 2020, so right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Just first of all, a little bit about myself. So I did my Leaving Cert in 2014. I got fairly average points in that. They weren't good enough for me to go on to study physiotherapy. So similar enough to Connor, I accepted a place in university. I was studying Spanish and economics in UCD, and after 2 years, I dropped out. It wasn't the course for me. I didn't like it at all. So I just started working full time, and then after working full time for a year, I started looking into return to studies. So I came across a PLC that was called Pre-University Physiotherapy in College de in Dublin. And then I got accepted into that, thankfully. And while studying College de I heard about sports therapy in Portobello Institute. So I went through the interview and the application process there. And thankfully, I was offered an advanced entry into second year of sports therapy. So that was just subject to my results in the PLC, and thankfully I ended up getting those. So I got to go straight into second year of the sports therapy course in Portobello. So while in while studying sports therapy in Portobello, it is a really practical based course. So we have like weekly therapy practical classes. These covered assessment and treatment techniques, along with how to diagnose common injuries seen either in a clinic or on a pitch, just depending whatever setting you end up working in. And then we also had regular sports physiology labs across in DCU. So all of this sort of was combined with quite a small class size. This really did ensure that like we were maximizing the time that we had while we were in college. Also then, so throughout the course, we had to organize work placement. So I managed to get work placement with a rugby club and a football club. So I was doing pitch side work with them, and then also with a private clinic. And then I was able to apply everything that we were learning in practical classes to both of those settings. And then also throughout the course, we were given the opportunity to complete extra courses as well. So things like taping and strapping, pitch side first aid. So obviously they're two important things if you want to move on to work in pitch side, and then also did a dry needling and massage course as well. So as I said, so I finished up in the middle of the pandemic. That kicked off while we were maybe 2 or 3 months left in the course. So that kicking off really did bring the challenge of online learning with it. But the lecturers and the tutors all in Portobello, they really adapted really well to this, and they made that transition as smooth as possible. It wasn't easy for anyone. And then when I finished up the course, it was, for obvious reasons, difficult to find any jobs. But then once things started to open up again and restrictions were lifted, I started working just in a small clinic in Dublin. And then I also started working with a rugby club. So I was in two different settings, and I was working with different populations. But the content and all the modules from the course really did provide me with the tools and confidence that I needed to begin working with the general public. So then moving on to study physiotherapy, it always was a goal of mine. So I found myself in the middle of lockdown with quite a lot of free time. So I started completing applications to master's programs for physiotherapy in the UK. And then Susan, one of the lecturers from Portobello, she really helped me through the entire interview and the application process, and that support really was invaluable. It really helped me. Thankfully, I was then offered a place in a pre-registration Masters of Physiotherapy in RGU in Aberdeen, which I accepted. And I started that in January 2020. So that course, it obviously began still in the middle of a lockdown. But thankfully, like, the online learning aspect wasn't that much of a shock to me, because of being used to it with Portobello. And then initially, like, in the course, the practical content was at the start was a lot of stuff that we had already covered in Portobello. So that really did benefit me massively. I didn't really feel massively overwhelmed with being bombarded with totally new information. And it really helped me while I was adapting to my new environment over here. I'd say sort of the biggest difference that I would notice between like undergraduate studies and the master's level, it's just what's expected really in the coursework. Like they expect an element of criticality in all of our assignments. I think Caroline's going to go through like an actual physiotherapy course more detail. But in fairness, like the tutors over here really have made that change a lot more manageable. But studying in Portobello, it really did give me the confidence and the ability to work as a sports therapist in Dublin, be it all like a few short months. But then it also provided me with a very solid base to go on and study physiotherapy at a master's level. So mine, I'm nice and short and sharp. Not as much information as Connor got into, but that's me. Thanks very much for listening.